Good afternoon, Ms. Jeffries. My name is Marissa Elkins. I represent Jared Biggs, the defendant in this matter. Attorney Washington, I assume we will be doing the usual stipulations?
Yes, we will.
And Ms. Jeffries, you might hear your attorney object at times. That is in the future for a judge potentially to decide on. You will still need to answer the question even if you hear or see your attorney object. Okay. Now, Ms. Jeffries, if you could please spell your name for the record, and also if you could tell me your your date of birth and your age, please.
My name is Melissa Jeffries, Melissa Jeffries. I'm 38 years old. My birthday is March 22nd.
And I can't do the math that fast. Is that 1980, your year you were born?
Yes, 1980.
And Ms. Jeffries, where are you currently living?
I live in Suffield, Connecticut.
And where do you work?
I am on leave.
Social and employment in Suffield, but I am on leave from my job currently.
I am on leave from my job currently, and I worked at the Center for Social and Employment
In Suffield.
in Enfield.
In Suffield. They haven't mentioned that she works in Connecticut.
So the answer is Enfield?
I don't know if I should object.
Yes, in Enfield, Connecticut.
Okay. And how far did you get in school?
I graduated high school, and I also have my associate's degree.
Okay. I know that you're deaf. I would like to ask a few questions about that.
Okay.
What is your education in sign language?
Objection.
I don't understand your question.
Well, and pardon me, I don't, I'm not very well educated about sign language myself, but I understand that there is American Sign Language and that there are different forms of sign language. Is there a form of sign language that you
Just a
use?
moment. I'm still a bit confused by the question. I do use American Sign Language. What's the point of the question?
Is that a question from her?
We're interpreting her question.
Okay. Thank you. That answers the question that I had. Do you, Ms. Jeffries, recall the evening of September 22nd, 2016?
Yes, I have a blurry memory of that night.
Okay, well, let's go back to sort of the beginning of the evening. Were you at a party at your cousin Jamila Park's house?
Yes, my cousin did have a party. Yes.
And that party, do you already know the address of where that party was held?
My cousin lives in Holyoke, Massachusetts.
Do you recall the street address?
I do not recall the address. The address is in my phone, and I don't have my phone with me.
Okay. Now, you said in your complaint filed in court that there were several guests there, over 30 people. Do you remember can you list for me the names of any people that you knew?
The people that attended the party, I do know who they are. They are there are acquaintances, but I do not know their names. Most of them are non-deaf people, so I don't know their names. I do know my family members, and they aren't. And I know my family members.
And was that list of family members who were present at the party all provided in your answers to interrogatories?
At this time, I don't remember. I think so. I think I did.
So, Ms. Washington, if we can get a complete list of the witnesses who were present at that party. I understand that Ms. Jeffries may not have known the names of everybody, but in my view, the discovery is incomplete on this matter, and I'd ask that we supplement that.
We'll provide it as best as she can.
Thank you. Now, at this party, there was alcohol?
Just a moment.
Do you need me to repeat the question?
Please.
So at this party, was there alcohol?
Yes, there was alcohol at the party, and there were people drinking, but I wasn't.
So what kinds of drinks were people drinking?
Well, there were people drinking beer, but I don't know what the brand name was of the beer they were drinking, and there were different types of alcohol, but I don't know specifically what types of alcohol they were drinking because I wasn't paying attention.
Okay. Do you recall if anybody at the party was intoxicated?
I didn't see anybody that was drunk. People were laughing and dancing and having a good time. Now, some people may have been buzzed and they may have gotten drunk a little bit later, but I didn't see anybody myself.
Was anybody smoking marijuana at the party?
Objection.
There was a lot of people around, but I didn't see anyone doing it. Go ahead, Brett.
Oh, did you see anybody else, did you see anybody using any other illegal substances, drugs, narcotics?
Objection.
No, definitely not. There was no narcotics there. My cousin is very much against drugs.
Now, you have diabetes, Ms. Jeffries, is that correct?
Yes.
And is that type 1 or type 2 diabetes?
Type 1, the most serious.
Okay. And so does that mean you were diagnosed when you were quite young, as is often the case?
Yes, around the age of 10.
Okay. And when you were diagnosed at the age of 10, did you at that age have to start testing your own blood sugar levels?
Well, initially I started with my mom's help, but then eventually I learned how to do it and did it independently on my own.
And so, of course, now at your age, 38, you take care of your own testing and monitoring your blood sugar levels. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And if your blood sugar level gets too high, what happens?
I have to have an insulin shot.
And are there any physical symptoms with your body that happens when your blood sugar gets too high, or do you just give yourself the shot to bring it down?
I feel dizzy when it gets too high. I don't feel good.
And when your blood sugar level falls too low, what happens, what symptoms do you have in that case?
It's the same thing. I don't feel well. That's why it's important for me to monitor my blood sugar on an ongoing basis.
Okay, so it's important for you to monitor your blood sugar level, is that correct?
Yes, I have my equipment with me all the time to check my blood levels so that I can make sure that I'm safe.
Okay. Now, sort of day in and day out, one of diabetes is about your ability to metabolize sugar, is that correct?
I don't understand the point of the question.
Okay, let me rephrase. So if you eat food that has a high level of sugar and you haven't taken insulin, then that causes your blood sugar to get very high. Is that correct?
It's not a confusion. We have to do with the interpretation of the word metabolism. So now they're getting clarification on that too.
Just a note for the record, there's a confusion on metabolism, the word metabolism.
Okay, thank you. Was that just the clarification that she just gave me?
She's just. Was your question to the four interpreters
My question
here,
is to
or-
the interpreters that she was interpreting the clarification back to me. I think I understand. Okay. But I don't think I ever got the answer to the question, which was if you eat sugar and you haven't taken insulin, then is the result of that that your blood sugar level goes very high?
It depends on what I've eaten during the day, so it really depends.
Okay. So things that have a lot of sugar in them are difficult for your body to use and digest. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I can have a little bit of sugar, but not too much.
Okay. And so you said that how sugar in food affects you depends on what you've had throughout the day. Is that correct? I need you to answer out loud. Or sign.
I'm just going to reinterpret that. I don't understand the point of the question.
Well, Ms. Jeffries, I just need you to answer the questions. It's not, I just need you to answer the questions. It's not about whether or not you understand the point of the questions.
I don't understand your question. I'm confused.
Okay. On the particular night, you did not bring your testing equipment in with you to the party.
It was in my car. I had it there. It was ready to use. It was in my car.
Do you keep your testing equipment in like a personal bag that you can carry with you inside to places?
Yes, I do. I left it in the car. I have a personal bag, and I left it in the car. There were so many people in the party, I didn't want to take it in. I wanted to be on the safe side, make sure it didn't get stolen. So I just left it in my car for safety purposes.
And this was a birthday party, correct?
Yes?
So there was birthday cake?
Yes, but I only eat a sliver of it because I really have to monitor my diabetes, so I have to monitor my sugars.
And so the way you monitor your sugars would be with the testing equipment that you left in your car?
Yes.
And did you have anything else to eat or drink at the party?
Yes, before I ate the cake, I had some chicken, some salad, and drank some water.
Okay. And did you have any soda or chips, anything else like that?
Oh no, soda's too high in sugar.
And do you recall when the last time you had tested your blood sugar before going into the party was?
Well, I do it twice a day, in the morning and in the afternoon. And on that date, I had done it in the morning, and I was planning on checking it later on after I'd gone home.
And if you're not feeling well during the course of a day, might you do additional tests?
Interpreter correction. I test it in the evening, not in the afternoon.
Actually, so strike my last question if you didn't hear it.
Just a moment for the interpreters. We need to back up and re-clarify that the interpreter team is clarifying for the record that was actually in the afternoon, not in the evening.
Okay, so generally speaking, you test in the morning and then in the afternoon again. Is that correct?
No, in the morning and in the evening.
Okay, morning and evening. That's the final answer.
Yes, in the mornings and in the evenings.
Okay. On that particular night, do you recall when was the last time you had tested?
That morning.
And about what time in the morning do you usually do that testing?
between 6 and 7 in the morning, just depends on what time I get up.
And do you ever add additional tests based on how you're feeling?
Generally, I do it in the morning and the evenings. Sometimes I may do it in the afternoon if I'm feeling a little off. I get really busy sometimes and I forget to eat. So in those times, I may have to test my blood sugar an extra time.
So when you say you might test when you're feeling off, what kind of symptoms might cause you to do an extra test during the day?
Well, sometimes I may be feeling tired, or I may be feeling dizzy. I'm just feeling lightheaded and not clear, kind of fuzzy, or I may be making a lot of trips back and forth to the bathroom. I may have forgotten to eat because I've been really busy, so I've forgotten to get something to eat. And so those times I can feel it, and I need to test my blood sugar to make sure that it's right.
Okay. Do you,
Hold on just a moment. We're going to make an interpreter switch. We're ready. Okay.
do you keep any kind of log of your blood sugar levels to discuss with your doctor or your health care providers?
I do have a log, and if the doctor asks for it, I will share it with the doctor. It's important that I keep a log.
And is that a log that you write yourself when you do testing, or is it sort of maintained by the testing equipment? Is it some sort of memory device on the testing equipment you use?
It's more convenient for me to use the device to track my, my levels. So the device has the numbers. Because I'm really busy.
Ms. Washington, we will be seeking discovery of the logs from her testing, her insulin testing device, if we can make a note of that.
So noted.
Now, oh, sorry. Now, on that particular day, do you recall, did you just test the usual 2 times, or did you have any reason, based on how you were feeling, to do any additional tests?
During that day, I felt fine. I didn't feel it necessary to check. I didn't have any symptoms for me to check an extra time on that day. I went shopping and I felt fine.
But if you had reason to check, that would be included in the logs on your testing device. Is that correct?
Yes, the device stores all the tests.
Do you recall what else you'd had to eat earlier in the day that day?
Are you asking like what I had for lunch?
Sure, let's start there.
I had lunch.
Do you recall what you had?
I had a chicken feta wrap.
Do you recall what you had for breakfast?
I had eggs.
Any coffee? Anything, orange juice? Anything to drink?
I had some tea.
You take sweetener in your tea?
I avoid using the artificial sugars in my tea. A friend of mine had told me that if I just use lemon, that would be much better for my diabetes.
Now, if you're going to be having a little extra sugar, going to a party, for instance, and having cake, do you take extra insulin sort of in anticipation, or do you test and then adjust your insulin after that?
Could we have, the interpreters have clarification on your question?
Sure.
When you asked for adjust your insulin, were you asking more insulin as in dosage or
How about just
Time.
give yourself an insulin dose?
I'm going to object to the form of the question.
Okay.
so could you repeat the question, please, for
Okay.
the interpreters?
If you know that you're going to have more sugar than you usually have in your diet, you might need to adjust your insulin levels. Would you do that in anticipation by taking extra insulin before, or would you wait until after you'd had the extra sugar test and then decide how much insulin you needed?
I tend to go ahead and have the sugar and then afterwards test because my body may adjust to the sugars that I intake, and I can go from there.
Okay. Now, had you ever had another diabetic episode to the point where you actually lost consciousness before?
I did experience a coma before when I was younger, but that was in the process of me trying to learn how to manage my diabetes.
And how old were you when that happened?
It was back in the time where I thought I knew everything. It was my college years. I was about 19, 20 years old.
Now, short of experiencing diabetic coma, have you ever had required other emergency care as a result of your diabetes?
What do you mean by an emergency situation, like getting sick?
Like getting sick or being close to diabetic coma, having a situation where other people were concerned about you and so called 911, for instance?
No.
So not since your college days have you ever had a incident where you were your blood sugar levels got so out of whack that you had to go to the doctor?
Objection. Asked and answered.
Since I was 19 or 20 years old, no, I have not had another episode. I have became used to caring for myself, and I'm independent in caring for my diabetes.
Now, on that particular night, you left the party because you were beginning to feel badly. Is that correct?
As a precaution, I did leave because I felt bad, and I wanted to get home so I could check my sugars.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. So you left because you were specifically feeling lightheaded and thought that you needed to check your blood sugars. Is that correct?
Actually, I left the party because I didn't feel good. I felt bad. I didn't feel lightheaded. I didn't say I felt lightheaded. I didn't feel lightheaded until I started driving home.
But you're,
I'm sorry, the interpreter needs to clarify, not driving home, driving, until I began driving.
now, I see. About how long does the drive take you from your cousin's house in Holyoke to your home in, it's Suffield, right? In Suffield?
About a half hour.
And, well, let me ask you this. So you said you keep a personal bag with your diabetes care supplies. Would I be correct to assume that means not just the testing instrument, but also insulin to give yourself if you need it?
To give it to herself if she needs it.
Yes, I do have a vial for emergency situations.
And so I want to make sure I understand how that testing and insulin dosage would work. Am I correct that the device is one like this one, where you just do a little prick to the finger and it gives you a reading of your blood sugar level?
Yes.
And then if based on the reading you feel like you need to give yourself some insulin, that's a shot. That's from a hypodermic needle, is that correct?
If my number is high, yes, I will use a needle.
And do you give yourself that shot in your belly usually?
Yes, in my belly.
And this process of doing the test, having, needing to adjust and take insulin, have you been in a position before where you had to do that in your car, for instance?
Yes, I'm a very busy person, and I travel, and for work, I do test in the car and give myself insulin if necessary.
Now, it sounded like from your description of what you had to eat that day that you generally don't eat very much sugar, correct?
I don't tend to eat a lot of sugar, but I do have to be careful with fruit because fruit has natural sugars in it, so I do have to watch that.
So it's fair to say, isn't it, that even though it was a small piece, that the cake you had that night was more sugar than usual?
Yes, I guess.
And you left the party because you were not feeling well, correct?
Yes, it was because I was tired. Yes, because I wasn't feeling well and I was tired.
And it was going to be another 30 minutes or so before you could get home from Holyoke. Is that correct?
It was just a 30-minute drive. It isn't that bad.
So there wasn't anything preventing you from pulling out your testing materials and testing before you got on the road, was there?
I wasn't feeling lightheaded. I felt fine. I was tired. I didn't feel the lightheadedness until I began driving.
Okay, but my question was, there wasn't anything preventing you from testing before you got on the road, was there?
I'm not quite clear on your question. Do you mean at my cousin's house? Is that your question?
Or in the car?
I did. I pulled over in the car and did my test in the car.
Now, my question is that before you put the car in drive and started home to Suffield, was there anything preventing you from testing at that point?
So you mean while I was parked at my cousin's house doing the test then?
Sure.
I didn't want people looking in the car and thinking that I was doing drugs because there was a lot of people around. So I thought it'd be better if I left and just did it in another place. That'd be safer.
Was there anything from preventing you from taking your bag and going back into your cousin's house to check your levels before you left?
I felt well enough to drive. I didn't feel that I had to do my testing right at that point. I was just tired.
Okay, so, but by the time you got from Holyoke to Springfield, you were already by that point feeling lightheaded, is that correct?
When I was driving at first, I felt fine, but then when I got into the triple ways and I felt lightheaded, I felt it was best that I pull over so I could check my blood sugar.
And that happened by about the time you got to Springfield, is that correct?
Yes, it was on the way home on 91, so yeah.
Now, by my estimation, from where I understand the party was to where you pulled over, my estimation is that that drive is only about between 5 and 10 minutes from point A to point B. Would you agree with that estimate?
Okay, so, let's see, the police said about 9:20, no, hang on a second. It was actually about 9:30. So from there it was what, 15 to 20 minutes later, because the police pulled me over at 9:40, no, 9:50 is when they pulled me over. So no, about 15 to 20 minutes.
So did they pull you over, or were
Or I was pulled over.
so we're
Sorry.
so were you pulled over, or had you pulled over to do the testing? Do you recall?
I actually pulled over myself at first, and then it just so happened the police came along and then were pulled over with me.
Okay. I have one more question, and then I think that we will have to reschedule because we're not going to finish this deposition today. But so just to conclude this line of questioning, where in your car did you keep your bag that contained your insulin testing, your testing device and your insulin?
In the center console.
And so when you were pulled over, that's where you were pulling your testing device out of when Officer Biggs approached your car?
I actually already had the equipment out in front of me, and I was getting ready to go ahead and test when the officer approached. But what is the point of your question? And he had his flashlight out.
I'm going to clarify this, and then we'll end. So just to clarify, you did you pulled the materials out of your bag in the center console, and you had the actual testing device in your hand testing when Officer Biggs approached. Is that correct?
Yes, that's when he approached with his flashlight at me and he was banging on the window.
No further questions for today. We done?
Question about whether he was banging on the window, just banging or banging on the window with the flashlight. And we, the table interpreter team, I'm not sure what the testimony was.
Okay, just for the record, the table interpretation team was not sure what the testimony was with respect to the officer banging on the window.
Okay.
Just to clarify for the record.
Okay, thank you. We'll clarify that when we reconvene.